But there are jobs the media does pay big bucks for when many people think it shouldn't. For example,
this defies credibility that you're going to spend $60,000 to buy an interview from a prostitute about a story. And quite frankly, this is journalism at its worst.
Oh, look, I think if that's true, it's an outrage. If you go around brothels offering $50,000 to $60,000 for someone to come forward, my view is that someone will eventually come forward, whether they've known Craig Thompson or not.
I'm sure anyone with a sound mind would assess that a woman who was previously working as an escort is not going to expose herself on a national television show in relation to this matter for a cup of coffee.
A Current Affairs executive producer, Grant Williams, defending his programme to Neil Mitchell last week. The interview wasn't aired tonight, but we're told it will be in the next few days. Meanwhile, for what they're worth, here are some thoughts on chequebook journalism. If someone survives being buried alive after a landslide or a mining accident, and they make a buck out of telling their story, good luck to them. But when people are paid to accuse others, it's much more contentious. There was another ACA story that Media Watch looked at 2 years ago.
There's a lot of serious allegations being made about you back in Australia at the moment. Do you have anything to say?
I'm absolutely, totally shocked at the allegations, and I absolutely deny everything.
A Current Affairs Ben McCormack grilling Hey Dad star Robert Hughes at a traffic light in Singapore. In a series of interviews given by former Hey Dad actors to A Current Affair and Woman's Day, Hughes had been accused of inappropriate behaviour towards its child star. And according to Seven's Today Tonight, those interviews hadn't come cheap. All up, Today Tonight alleged A Current Affair and Woman's Day between them paid out $200,000 to people they interviewed for the story. On that occasion, Grant Williams wrote to Media Watch,
"Any suggestion that evidence provided by victims and witnesses could or would be compromised in the event that they were or were not paid to tell their version of events is patently offensive to those victims and witnesses."
Well, as I said then, they'd better get used to it. Though police investigations are continuing, no charges have been laid against Hughes. If they ever were, his defence barrister would surely toss those payments in the witnesses' faces, suggesting to the jury that they said it for the money. Few people have been involved in more of these decisions than Peter Meakin, long-time head of News and Current Affairs at 9 and now doing the same job at 7. He told us,
"As a general rule, I think it is dangerous and undesirable to pay people to make serious, unproven allegations against anyone. The credibility of any individual who gets paid to trash another's reputation is seriously undermined."
We'll keep that one on file, Peter, in case 7 does the same one day. But it's an area in which Australian newspapers have generally been much more cautious than the gossip mags and tabloid TV shows. On paper, they leave the door open to chequebook journalism. News Limited's professional conduct policy, for example, states,
"As a general principle, payment must not be made for interviews or information."
But the editor can approve exceptions. Fairfax Media's rules are much the same.
Payment for information should be avoided, unless an appropriate senior editor believes there is a strong public interest and there is no alternative to payment.
In practice, however, investigative reporters on newspapers very seldom make large payments to informants. ABC and SBS never do. Said ACA reporter Justin Armsden last week, but in this case, the former escort didn't come looking for him, he found her, and she signed a statutory declaration.
She provided that last week, and the implications of that are pretty obvious. This is a legal document under the Oaths Act, punishable by jail if it's found to be not true.
Well, yes, but whatever weight that may have with viewers, the knowledge that the woman will get more for one interview than most people take home for a year's work will surely weigh heavier, especially if her identity is concealed. In the end, despite the payments they received, I said I thought the actors who accused Robert Hughes were credible and ACA's airing of their allegations was justified in the public interest. Whether I or you will think the same about a former escort who's been promised $60,000 for claiming to remember one client among potentially hundreds from 7 years ago is a very different question. Maybe next week we'll be able to make a judgment. Until then, good night.